I caught my husband with his mistress, not during an argument, not after a scandal, not in a moment of despair when our relationship was already falling apart. I caught him while I was bringing him breakfast in bed. It was our little Sunday rule, a sacred tradition we had kept for the last 3 years. The morning was filled with sunshine and the smell of pancakes, and in my hands was a tray with coffee, croissants, and a small bouquet of wildflowers I had bought from an old woman at the market. It was a small act of love I wanted to give to the person I trusted most in the world. I walked quietly so as not to wake him, to make it a surprise. My smile was genuine and bright, the kind you only have in moments of pure, untroubled happiness. I was at the peak of my well-being, my belief that everything was fine between us. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. It was usually tightly closed. I noticed it out of the corner of my eye but didn't think anything of it. Maybe he got up for water? I gently pushed the door open with my hip so as not to drop the tray. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, his back to me. And next to him, she was sitting there. A stranger. She was laughing. I knew his laugh, but hers? It was foreign. She was wearing his t-shirt, one of the ones I bought for him for his birthday. Her long dark hair was scattered over her shoulders, and her hand was resting on his knee. He was gently stroking her hair, and then he leaned in and kissed her on the lips. Gently, the way he used to kiss me. My world shattered into 1,000 pieces. The sound of breaking glass in my head was louder than the sound of the fallen tray. Coffee spilled across the parquet floor, the croissants rolled away, and the little bouquet of wildflowers lay in a puddle that looked like blood. And I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't rush at him or her with my fists. I just stood there, paralyzed, watching my husband, my one and only love, cheat on me with another woman. In that moment, I felt less betrayed than invisible, as if I were a ghost in my own home. They didn't see me. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't notice the noise or my presence. And that was the worst part. Worse than any pain. It wasn't an insult. It was a denial of my existence. I backed away, like a shadow, and found myself in the living room. The door closed quietly, separating me from the scene. I stood in the middle of the room, looking at the coffee stain on the expensive parquet, and I could only think of one thing. How quickly would this stain disappear? Should I clean it up right away? As if the cleanliness of the floor was more important than the cleanliness of my soul. My hands were trembling, but not from anger, from a cold shock. I went into the kitchen, found a piece of paper and a pen. My brain was working quickly and clearly, like a computer that had suddenly found an error in the system and started analyzing it. On the sheet, I wrote just one sentence. You left the door open. I went back to the bedroom where they still were. She was whispering something in his ear, her arms wrapped around his neck, and he was smiling. I carefully placed the note on the dresser, next to the watch I had given him for our anniversary. The watch showed 10:37. I memorized the time, and as quietly as I had entered, I left the room. They never noticed me. I went to the car, got behind the wheel, and drove away from the house. I knew I had time. He wouldn't get out of bed before noon. And she, it seemed to me, wasn't in a hurry either. I had a few hours to gather my thoughts. In those hours, I had to decide what to do next. I drove to a small cafe where we often had breakfast together. His favorite coffee, my favorite croissant. Now they seemed like poison to me. I ordered a strong black coffee with no sugar or milk. The bitterness was supposed to wash away the sweetness of that morning. I sat at a table, looking at the passers-by, and I remembered. I remembered how we met, our first dates, his words of eternal love. All those memories now seemed like a sham, like props in a play being performed behind my back. I recalled our conversations, his stories of long business trips, of stressful work. Every time he talked about late nights at the office, I believed him. I believed he was working hard for us. I was proud of him, his perseverance, his ambition. And I never doubted his words for a second. He was my world, my rock. I gave him all of me, all my love, all my time. And he was putting on this performance for me. My brain, which had recently been in shock, now began to work like a machine, sifting through facts, details, dates. I remembered how he suddenly started buying new clothes for himself, how he started wearing cologne more often, how he stopped taking me to corporate parties, explaining that they were boring events. I didn't doubt it. I believed him because he was my husband. I went through all these details, and they came together like a giant puzzle, into a terrible picture of betrayal. I couldn't understand what I had done wrong. Was I a bad wife? Wasn't I good enough for him? Or was it just his nature? I didn't know, and that not knowing tore me apart. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My voice was gone, as if I had forgotten how to speak. I sat in the cafe, drinking my bitter coffee, and watched a world that continued to live its life. People were laughing, children were playing, lovers were holding hands. And it all seemed like a mockery to me, as if they all knew what was happening and were laughing at me. I felt lonely, lost in this world where everything seemed so ordinary and happy. My phone vibrated. It was a message from my best friend, inviting me to lunch. I couldn't reply to her. I couldn't talk to anyone. I needed time to process all this, to understand what was happening. I turned off my phone and put it in my pocket. I didn't want anyone to know about my pain. I drove to our country estate, which we had bought a year ago. It was our sanctuary, our place where we could be alone, away from the city's hustle and bustle. I knew he wouldn't go there. There, in our house, I could be alone, I could think. I drove along the familiar road, past fields and forests, and finally saw our house. It was just as beautiful as always, but now it felt foreign to me. I entered the house, and the first thing I felt was the smell of dust and loneliness. I sat on the sofa we had picked out together and cried. I wasn't crying from grief, but from disappointment. I was disappointed in him, in myself, in our love. I was disappointed that everything I believed in was a lie. I spent the whole day in the house, trying to figure out what to do next. Revenge? Justice? Escape? All these paths seemed equally difficult and dangerous. I didn't know which one to choose. I felt like I was at a crossroads, standing in front of 3 doors, and behind each one was the unknown. By evening, I felt that I had to go back. I couldn't just sit and wait. I had to act. I had to know what he would do. I had to look into his eyes and see what he would say. I had to understand if he was just a scoundrel, or if there was at least a drop of conscience in his soul. I returned to the city. I slowly drove up to the house. I saw that he was home. The light was on in the living room. I stopped the car but didn't get out. I wanted to see what he would do. I saw him pacing the room, talking on the phone, nervously running his hands through his hair. And I realized he had found the note. And then I saw him grab his phone and dial a number. I knew he was calling her. I wanted to hear their conversation, but I couldn't. I just sat and watched him. I saw how nervous he was, how he was trying to explain something. I saw him pacing the room like a caged animal. And in that moment, I realized he wasn't just a scoundrel. He was a player. And he wasn't playing this game alone. And then my phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. I opened it and saw one word. The game has begun. My phone was shaking in my hand. I looked at the single word on the screen, game. Like a cold shower, it sobered me up completely. This wasn't just a mistake, a fleeting weakness that he might, in a moment of remorse, try to explain. No, this was something more. Something planned, calculated, perhaps not just by him. My heart was pounding somewhere in my throat. Who wrote this? The mistress? Or a third person who knew everything? The number was unknown. No name, no avatar. Just text. I felt like a puppet that had just pulled a string, and now someone from the darkness had responded. A shiver of cold, of anticipation, of fear enveloped me. I slowly got out of the car, feeling like I was in a minefield. Every step felt false. My key turned in the lock, and I entered the house. The smell of the spilled coffee still lingered in the air. He was standing in the center of the living room, with his phone in his hand. He didn't hear me come in. His face was tense. It didn't have that carefree smile I had seen on the bed. He wasn't just worried. He was furious. "Where have you been?" His voice was as cold as ice. I just stared at him silently, and the silence, it seemed, was driving him crazy. He walked up to me, his eyes full of rage. He was enraged. Not because I had caught him, but because something had gone wrong. Did you see the note? I asked. My voice was even, without a single emotion. His face changed. Rage was replaced by contempt. What was that supposed to mean? He scoffed. I just looked at him silently. You left the door open. I came in to bring you breakfast. And you weren't alone. I tried to speak calmly, but I was shaking inside. I didn't scream, I didn't make a scene. I just left. I didn't want to disturb you. I saw his face distort. He hadn't expected this reaction. He must have been waiting for hysterics, screams, tears. He was ready for that. He wasn't ready for my coldness. You saw, he whispered, and for the first time, something like fear sounded in his voice. I saw you kissing her. I saw her stroking your knee. I saw her in your t-shirt. That's enough to understand everything. He was silent. I saw him trying to find an excuse. It's not what you think. He began, but I stopped him. I think he lied to me. Every day. Our whole life is a lie. And you are putting on this performance behind my back. I walked to the dresser, took the note I had left, and put it on the table between us. And that's all you need to know. He slowly, as if afraid, walked to the table, took the note, read it, and then tore it into tiny pieces. In that moment, I felt that he was hiding something. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was hiding something much more important. His reaction was too emotional for a simple affair. He was in a panic. I know you don't believe me, he said, but everything I did for us. For our future. Those words made me feel sick. I felt a wave of anger wash over me. For us. I yelled for the first time all day. You lied to me, cheated on me, and now you say it was for us. What else are you hiding? He was silent. I saw him trying to find a way out of this situation. He was scared. And then he did something I didn't expect. He tried to hug me. Please forgive me. I was a fool. I only love you. I pushed him away. Don't you dare. Don't you even dare touch me. I don't believe you. And I don't believe this was just an affair. A cold glint appeared in his eyes. He realized I wouldn't play by his rules. He realized I wasn't a hysterical wife, but a calculating opponent. And in that moment, he went on the offensive. Fine. If you don't want to believe me, then I'll tell you the whole truth. But you have to be ready for it. I didn't just do this for nothing. I did it because I had no choice. I was drawn into it. I waited. I knew he was lying. I knew he was trying to justify himself. But I wanted to hear his story. I wanted to know how he would justify his betrayal. So, what are you hiding? I asked. He went to the bar, poured himself a whiskey, and drank it in one gulp. I'm in debt. Huge debt. I lost everything. And I had to do something. She helped me. She has connections. She could help me get out. I felt a wave of cold horror wash over me. I didn't believe a word he said. I knew he was lying, but I couldn't prove it. I looked at him and realized that he was willing to do anything to save his reputation. He was willing to lie, to manipulate, even if it hurt me. He was a player, and he was willing to do anything to win. I walked out of the house, feeling broken. He had lied to me. He continued to lie to me. I got into my car and drove. I drove without a goal, without a destination. I just drove through the streets, trying to understand what to do. I couldn't go back to him. I couldn't live with him, knowing that he lied to me every day. I stopped by the river. It was late at night. I got out of the car and walked to the water. In the reflection, I saw myself. Tired, devastated, with eyes full of tears. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I was at rock bottom. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to live anymore. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was a new message from the same unknown number. I know you don't believe him. And you're right not to. He's lying to you. He's always lied. My heart beat faster. Who is this? I wrote back, who are you? There was no reply. I waited, but there was no answer. I realized this wasn't just a joke. This wasn't just some person who knew about our lives. This was someone who knew much more. Someone who knew he was lying. The next day, I started to act. I took my laptop and started digging. I logged into his bank accounts. I knew his passwords. I found everything I needed. And I found nothing. All his accounts were empty. Our joint accounts were almost empty too. Everything we had saved, all our savings, it was all gone. He had transferred all the money to offshore accounts. I couldn't believe it. I realized he wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a fraud. He was a con artist who had used me to get money. He had deceived me, he had robbed me, he had stolen my life. I felt a wave of fury wash over me. I wanted revenge. I wanted him to pay for everything he had done. I wanted to destroy him, but I didn't know how to do it. He was a powerful, influential man. He had connections. He had money. I was just a woman who had lost everything, but I didn't give up. I started looking for information about him. I started looking for his mistress. I wanted to know who she was. I wanted to know what she was hiding. I found her. Her name was Erica. She was a financial consultant. She worked at the same company as him. They worked together. I realized their relationship wasn't just about love. It was a business partnership. They were working together to deceive me. I felt a wave of disgust wash over me. I couldn't believe it. I had been so naive, so foolish. I had believed that he loved me. And he was just using me. I continued to search. And I found one more terrible thing. I found the correspondence between him and his mistress. They were discussing how they would split the money. They were discussing how they would deceive me. And I found one name that was constantly mentioned in their correspondence. The name of my brother. My brother was our financial consultant. He managed all our investments. He was the person I trusted most in the world. And he was also in the game. He was also my enemy. He was also a part of this conspiracy. I felt a wave of horror wash over me. My own brother. He had betrayed me. He had deceived me. He was one of them. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't accept it. I felt a wave of shock wash over me. I was alone. I was alone against everyone. I was alone against them. I was alone in this world. And then my phone vibrated again. It was a new message from the same number. Your brother was in the game, but he's not alone. They have someone else. I sat there, paralyzed, with the phone in my hand. My brother was one of them, and they had someone else. I was horrified. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And then my phone rang. It was my brother. I didn't know what he wanted from me. I didn't know what he would say, but I had to answer. I had to find out what was going on. I pressed the button. "Hello, sis," he said. "I heard you're in trouble. I'm sorry. I know how hard this is for you." I didn't know what to say to him. I didn't know what he wanted from me. I just stayed silent. And then he said something that changed everything. "I know what you're thinking right now. You think I'm with them, but I'm not. I tried to help you. I tried to save your money, but they found out about everything. I didn't believe him. I couldn't believe him. I felt that he was lying to me, but I wanted to believe him. I wanted it to be true. I wanted him to be my ally. I don't know what to say," I whispered. "I know you don't believe me," he said, "but I have proof. I have everything you need to defeat them. But you have to be careful. They know you're looking for them. They know that you know everything. They know you won't give up." I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to believe him, but I had to make a choice. I had to decide what to do next, and I knew that this choice could change everything. I had to take the first step. I had to take the step that would change everything. I held the phone to my ear, but I couldn't hear anything but the beating of my own heart. He said he wasn't with them, that he was trying to save me. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that at least one person in this world hadn't betrayed me. But I couldn't. Too many lies, too much betrayal. I felt like I was in a huge house with funhouse mirrors, where every reflection was a distorted truth, and I could no longer distinguish between a lie and reality. I agreed to meet him. I chose the place, an old cafe where we used to eat ice cream as kids. It was our place, our sanctuary, where we could be just the two of us. I got there first and sat at our table by the window. I looked out at the street, at the people rushing somewhere, and I thought about how my life had changed in just a few days. When he arrived, I barely recognized him. He was the same as always, but there was a kind of tiredness in his eyes, a kind of sadness I had never seen before. He sat across from me and was silent. I was silent too. I wanted to hear his truth, but I was afraid of it. I was afraid he would lie to me again. I know you don't believe me, he said, but I'll tell you everything I know. I can't stay silent anymore. And he told me everything. He told me how my husband, his best friend, had pulled him into the scheme. He said my husband had promised him a fortune, promising that they could make millions. He said he believed him. He believed that they could get rich and that they could help me and him. He said he didn't know my husband was using me. He didn't know he had stolen my money. I listened to him, and my soul was torn apart. I didn't know whether to believe him, but I saw his eyes. There were no lies in them. There was pain, regret, and a kind of fear that I couldn't understand. I tried to stop him, he said, but it was already too late. He had already transferred all the money. And he told me that if I said a word to you, he would make me lose everything. And he would make you look crazy. He threatened me. I felt a wave of fury wash over me. He wasn't just a scoundrel. He was a monster. He was willing to do anything to maintain his lie. He was willing to destroy me, my brother, everyone who stood in his way. So, what do you want? I asked. Why are you telling me all this? He took a flash drive out of his pocket. Everything is here. Everything you need. All his accounts, all his correspondence, all his dealings. I made copies of everything he did. I knew he wouldn't be able to stop. I knew he would continue. I knew that sooner or later he would do something that I couldn't forgive. I took the flash drive, and it was cold. I felt a wave of hope wash over me. I had a chance. I had a chance to win. I had a chance for justice. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't know which path to choose. My brain started working like a machine, going through the options. I could use this flash drive to destroy him. I could send all this data to the press, to his company, to his partners. I could make him lose everything. His name, his reputation, his friends. I could make him lose everything he had. I could make him feel the same pain I felt. But I knew it could be dangerous. He was a powerful man. He had connections. He could destroy me before I could do anything. He could frame me, accuse me of data theft, of blackmail. I could lose everything, even if I won. I could end up in prison or in a mental institution or somewhere else I didn't want to be. This path was dangerous, but it was so tempting. I felt a wave of rage wash over me, and I wanted to get revenge on him. I wanted him to pay for everything. I could go to the police. I could give them this flash drive, and they could start an investigation. I could get justice through the law. I could get back everything he had stolen from me. I could make sure he ended up in prison. This path was safer, but it was slow. I knew he could use his connections to avoid punishment. I knew he could bribe someone to cover everything up. I knew he could make me look crazy. I could spend years of my life trying to get justice, and in the end, I could lose. He was too powerful. He had too many connections. I couldn't be sure that the law would be on my side. I could take this flash drive, sell it to someone who could use it, and leave. I could start a new life in another city, in another country. I could forget everything that happened. I could live peacefully, without fear, without pain, without hatred. This path was the easiest. It was the safest. But it was the most humiliating. It would mean that I lost. It would mean that he won. He got everything he wanted, and I couldn't do anything. I would never be able to forgive myself for that. I would never be able to forget what he did. I would live with this pain my whole life. I sat in the cafe, holding the flash drive in my hand, and I thought about which path to choose. I couldn't decide. I was at a crossroads, and every path was equally difficult and dangerous. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I didn't know what to do. Suddenly, my brother took out his phone and showed me a picture. The picture showed my husband and his mistress. They were standing on a yacht that was moored in the port. I recognized the yacht. It was our yacht. Or rather, it was ours. He had transferred it to an offshore company that belonged to his mistress. He had stolen everything we had, and he didn't even think to hide it. He was so sure of his impunity that he didn't even think I might find out. I looked at the picture, and I felt a wave of fury wash over me. A fury I had never felt before. It was cold, calm, but so powerful that I could barely breathe. I knew what I had to do. I had to act. I had to choose a path. I got up, put the flash drive in my pocket, and looked at my brother. "I know you don't believe me," he said, "but I'll be there for you. I'll help you." I was silent. I couldn't speak. I just nodded at him and walked out of the cafe. I walked down the street, feeling a wave of hatred wash over me. Hatred for him, for his mistress, for his friends. Hatred for myself for being so naive. I came home and saw that he was waiting for me. He was sitting on the sofa, and his face was tense. He stood up when I came in, and his eyes were full of fear. He knew that I knew. He knew that I had found something. He knew that I would fight. "I know what you want," he said. "You want me to explain everything. But I can't. I can't tell you everything that's happening." I just looked at him. I felt nothing for him. No love, no hatred. Just emptiness. I was ready for the fight, and I knew that I would fight. "I know you want to know what I'm going to do," I said. "But I won't tell you. I'm going to act. And you'll find out everything when it's too late." I turned around and went to the bedroom. He followed me, but I didn't pay any attention to him. I went into the bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. I sat on the bed and took out the flash drive. I looked at it, and I knew what I was going to do. I wouldn't run away. I wouldn't give up. I would fight. I would fight for my life, for my honor, for my soul. And then I saw that a notification was blinking on my phone. It was a message from my brother. "I know what you're thinking right now, but don't rush. I know they have another plan. They're going to." I froze, not finishing the message. In that moment, I heard a loud noise outside the door. It was my husband. He was trying to break the door down. I realized I had no time. I had to make a choice. I had to act. I had to decide what to do. And then I saw a small, dirty piece of paper on the floor. I picked it up and saw that it was my note, the one I had left him when I left. He had torn it into tiny pieces, but I had put them back together. And I saw that something was written on the back. It wasn't his handwriting. It was Erica's handwriting. And there was only one word. Trap. Trap. That single word, written on the back of the torn note, echoed in my head. It sounded like a sentence, like the final chord in this symphony of betrayal. The bedroom door was shaking from my husband's blows. He knew I was in it. He knew I knew something. He knew I wouldn't be silent. I was in his house, in his trap. He didn't just want to deceive me. He wanted to destroy me. I realized I had no time. No time for long thoughts. No time for internal struggle. All three paths, revenge, justice, escape, disappeared. Only one remained, to survive. I rushed to the window. 3rd floor. High, but not deadly. I had no choice. I opened the window, climbed out onto the narrow ledge, holding onto the wall, and carefully, step by step, began to climb down the drain pipe. I felt my hands slip, my heart pounding wildly. I heard him yelling my name, heard him breaking down the door. He was in a rage. He was ready for anything. And I was ready for anything to escape. When I finally landed on the ground, I felt a wave of relief. I was free, but I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. I was on the run. I was alone. I was in danger. I got into my car and drove, not knowing where I was going. My hands were shaking, but I held the wheel tightly. I had to act. I had to fight. I drove to my brother's place. I knew he was the only one who could help me. I called him, and he answered immediately. His voice was tense. "Where are you?" he asked. He already called me. He said you've gone crazy. He said you tried to rob him. He said he's going to call the police. I didn't know what to say to him. He had already started his game. He had already started his revenge. He had already started his war. I knew I had to be one step ahead of him. "I'm at your place," I said. I have to tell you everything." He was silent, but I could hear him breathing into the phone. He was scared, but he was with me. He was my ally. When I arrived at his house, he was waiting for me. He opened the door and I went in. I felt safe, but I knew it was a temporary sanctuary. He was in a rage and he wouldn't stop until he found me. We sat in the kitchen and I told him everything. I told him how I caught him, about the note, about the flash drive, about his lies. I told him how I found Erica's note and about the word trap. I told him how I escaped. He listened to me, and his face was full of horror. He won't stop, he said. He'll make you look crazy. He'll destroy you. I know, I said, but I won't give up. I'll fight. And then I felt that I was ready for the fight. I felt strong. I wasn't a victim. I was a warrior. And I knew I wouldn't fight alone. We started working together. We went through everything on the flash drive. We found all his accounts, all his correspondence, all his dealings. We found his partners, his accomplices, his patrons. We found everything we needed. And we found one more thing. We found his secret correspondence with his mistress, where they were discussing how they would destroy me. They didn't just want to rob me. They wanted to make me go crazy. They wanted me to lose everything, even my soul. I felt a wave of rage wash over me. They weren't just scoundrels. They were monsters. And I knew I couldn't just run away. I had to fight. I had to defeat them. But how? We couldn't just go to the police. They were too powerful. They had too many connections. They could use their power to destroy us. We had to come up with something else. Something they didn't expect. And then I remembered that I had always been a good strategist. I had always loved chess. I had always known how to calculate all the moves. And I realized that I had to use this game to defeat him. I wouldn't play by his rules. I would play by my own. I came up with a plan that was so crazy it might just work. I decided that I wouldn't fight him in the open. I would fight him from the shadows. I would play his games, but by my own rules. I would use him against himself. My brother was on my side. He was my ally. We started to act. We started to gather everything we needed. We found his weak spots, his vulnerabilities, his secrets. We started to gather information we could use against him. And then he started to act. He started spreading rumors about me. He said I had gone crazy, that I had tried to rob him. He started using his connections to destroy my reputation. He started using his money to hire people to follow me. He was confident in his victory. He was confident that he would destroy me. But he didn't know that I was ready. I was ready for the fight. I was ready for the war. And I was ready to win. We started to act. I started sending anonymous messages to his partners, his friends, his family. I sent them small hints, small details that could sow doubt. I sent them small pieces of the truth that could undermine his reputation. I used him against himself. He was furious. He couldn't figure out who was doing this. He couldn't figure out who had betrayed him. He started to suspect everyone. He started to suspect his friends, his partners, his mistress. He began to destroy his own empire. And then I made my final move. I sent all his partners, all his friends, his mistress, his family, everything I knew about him. All his accounts, all his correspondence, all his secrets. I revealed everything. I revealed everything he was hiding. And I did it in a way that he wouldn't know it was me. When I did it, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I was free. I was free from him, from his lies, from his betrayal. I was free from this game. He was destroyed. He lost everything. His name, his reputation, his friends, his partners. He lost everything he had. He was bankrupt. His mistress left him. His partners turned their backs on him. He was alone. He was all alone. I got what I wanted. I took my revenge. But I didn't feel like a winner. I didn't feel happy. I felt empty. I won, but I paid a high price. I lost my love, my husband, my life. I left. I started a new life. I moved to another city, to another country. I started everything from scratch. I didn't want to play these games anymore. I didn't want to fight anymore. I just wanted to live. And then I got a message from an unknown number. You won. I didn't know who wrote it. I didn't know who it was. But I realized that I wasn't alone. I realized that I had allies. I realized that I wasn't alone. I won the external war, but I won the internal one. I won the battle for my soul,